beautiful and amazing contribution. I really like the metaphorical and elegant language that you use, and also the rich materials provided here in this paper. And it was really a pleasure of mine to read because I have similar yet unpublished research about both male and female Lithuanians of post-Soviet period and how they are writing and how they are perceiving this being Lithuanians and being Europeans and situating themselves like in between East and West. And although I came to slightly different conclusions, but later about that. So, first of all, as you say yourself, I mean, all my comments are not like not the critical comments, but I mean, you really speak about issues that are highly interesting, and it's just like more like opening a discussion. First aspect is that, as you say, you really have broad objectives in mind. And I mean, in this paper, you are dealing with like really complexity of issues. And sometimes at some point it's very easy to get lost, but it's like your main focus on, is it woman's experience or communist experience or experience of displacement or hybrid identities, or survival of trauma or post-traumatic stress disorders, experience of displacement, non-belonging, muting your own experience, being part of the diaspora, maintaining ethnic identities abroad, or memory studies, or how these female writers, women writers construct their own Europeanism while being abroad. So I mean, it's like really overwhelming complexity of the issues that you try to target. And as it was said this morning during the another presentation, the comment from, I would like to repeat the same comment from a previous reviewer, that it's really, there are a lot of fascinating materials, but I suggest somehow to squeeze them and to organize in a certain categories. Like you also speaking about how different women writers deal with trauma by adopting very different styles. So it's, I mean, you're dealing like grotesque or satire or cruel realism or comedy, and you're dealing with one of the basic social categories with the gender, right? And it would be very interesting to compare in several categories. Let's say how the Romanian women writers in exile deal with trauma, let's say, depending on the host country. Because I imagine, let's say, in Sweden, someone is living in Sweden is immersed in a completely different culture, right? And someone living in America or Australia is immersed in completely different culture. So the culture of the host country is shaping their own perceptions about trauma. And another aspect is that, while I'm really suggest to elaborate a little bit on is like, what is your definition of trauma? Generally, from psychological perspective, because I mean, for an outside reader or someone who is working just exclusively in literature studies, it might be not clear what is the trauma, just a painful experience or just something bad, or you know. And it's another aspect I'd like to stress on, because I know that the Armenian case was very different from Lithuania and Soviet Union, but let's say in Russian and Soviet studies, the trauma is associated exclusively with the deportations and with the Stalinist period, which is, I mean, the late socialist period is hardly seen as traumatizing. I'm not saying that this perception is right, I think it's wrongful. But many people don't see the late socialism as a traumatizing experience. And trauma is something that happened like in Lithuania in the post-war years, related with deportation, loss of families, physical violence, whereas the later period is seen as relatively peaceful. So that would be very interesting to specify what constitutes trauma from psychological perspective in general, and what constitutes a traumatizing experience in case of Romania. And also, in some cases, you use a concept of post-communist trauma. So I think it's like a little bit, I suggest revise the use of the concept, because maybe it's not post-communist trauma, but it's post-traumatic stress disorder. It's like, if you think that communism was a traumatizing experience, so the things that happen after